I think what they're telling us is that sometimes in alcoholics and drug addicts and that we take these things to a little bit of an extreme, right? And when we take these things to an extreme, our self-will becomes so great that we cannot have a successful life because we're always in collision with people, places, and things. The next instinct is the security instinct, right? So we know that we stay sober, sometimes a day, sometimes an hour, a minute, a second at a time. But everybody here's got an insurance policy, right? All of us humans, we want to be secure in the future. We want to have food, clothing, shelter, and basically things that we need to survive. If we did not do this, we would die in the winter, right? So the world is going to teach us what we need to be secure, and we're going to have to sacrifice. And we can't blow everything we have made today, or we won't be secure tomorrow. So I always, I'm a commissioned salesman, right? And I'm there. I always like to see my name at the top of the list for having the biggest numbers, right? So you work all month, you work hard, you do this, and at the end of the month, you go, oh my God, look at that, I'm number one this month. That's just wonderful, right? And all of a sudden, guess what? It's over in a second, right? And it could be being at the top of the sales, but it could also be a new dress, new shoes, a new car, a new house, a new lake home, a new business, right? We strive, we work, we have a great feeling when we get it, but that feeling is only temporary, and all of a sudden we seems that we want more and more and more. Now that was true for me when I did not have a higher power in my life, because the only way that I could get any kind of feeling of satisfaction was through things, right? Having other people think I'm the best, and having money and prestige and power and more, right? And again, I love it, because every time at the end of the month, it's like, look, I'm number one. All of a sudden, guess what? You start the next month over, that is gone, and you got to do it again. And it creates, we're not getting it fast enough. So, again, we lie, we con, we manipulate, we cheat, we cause pain and suffering for other people, and they retaliate, and they cause us pain and suffering, right? So that's what he's talking about with the actor. Why don't you mind me? Why don't you do what I say? And the reason, let's say that you're married, I'm not, but you want your wife to do exactly what you say, but guess what? Your wife or your husband, they have self-will too, right? So we all have self-will. Now the third is the sex instinct. All human beings have that desire, right? Or the race would die out. And what a wonderful feeling, upon completion of the sex act, right? But again, that's only temporary too. So we're no longer done with it, and we start thinking about doing it again. Right? It's so pleasurable and exciting that we think about doing it in different ways, different positions, and oh my goodness, with different people. Right? Next thing you know, we're doing it wrong time, wrong place, wrong person, and we are creating pain and suffering for other people. They retaliate, and they create pain and suffering for us, right? So the fulfillment of these basic instincts can be so pleasurable that all humans from time to time will overdo it in one or more of these areas, and when we do that, we create pain and suffering for others. And our self-will that they're talking about comes through these basic instincts. And when we overdo these instincts, that's when we create wrongs. Okay? So we're going to see that resentments, a good definition for that is incorrect judgment of other people, right? And that's feelings of bitter hurt or indignation, which comes from rightly or wrongly held feelings of being injured or offended, right? So incorrect judgment, right? Because most of the time we're wrong, at least I was. Fear, feelings of anxiety, agitation, uneasiness, apprehension, incorrect perception or believing. We're going to find out when we do our fourth step that a lot of our fears are incorrect perception of what's really going on. And then the harms and the hurts we do others are just incorrect treatment of other people. So basically what we have, these three basic instincts, that's what we get when we talk about self, right? And again, that's why this actor is in collision with other people. So we are going to shoot back to the book. Right? Yep, we're going back to the book. So, what usually happens? Remember, we're trying to control everything, right? Because we know best, and if things work out the way that we want them to, we're going to be better off in the social, better off security-wise, and better off sexually, right? So what usually happens, the show doesn't come off very well. He begins to think life doesn't treat him right. He decides to exert himself more. He becomes on the next occasion still more demanding or gracious, as the case may be. Still, the play does not suit him, and we're just talking about life. Admitting he may be somewhat at fault, underline, he is sure that other people are more to blame. Okay, and then highlight the next sentence too. He becomes angry, indignant, self-pitying. Okay, so right next to that, we're going to write, he's a victim, right? He or she. He's a victim. So we do something that causes a lot of pain or harm to somebody else, and they retaliate against us, and we forget about what we did, or we don't think about it at all, and all of a sudden we're the little old victim, and people are not being fair to us, right? So that's what they're talking about here. And then we become angry, indignant, and poor me, man. God, that cop was waiting over there. That's bullshit. My boss, man, he can't do that to me. I don't care if I didn't come in for 2 days. That's not fair, right? So we're the victim. So now we're going to talk about 6. Right after self-pitying, off to the right, let's write 6 questions of self-delusion. These are 6 questions. I just put a question mark with an S. 6 questions of self-delusion. And then after self-delusion, just write will in parentheses. Not you will, but our self will. So I'll put a 1 in front of what. Okay, that's just the first question. What is his basic trouble? Okay, so that's kind of that's a rhetorical question. He's going to answer it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a little translation that they gave to me at the first Code Blue I went through. Put a 2 in front of, is he not really a self-seeker, even when trying to be kind? So down at the down at the bottom of the page, put a 2 and write, look good in front of others. Right? That's a little translation. Really important for me to look good in front of other people my whole life, right? And I'm still trying to get used to the idea that what other people think of me is none of my business, right? I'm still trying to get used to that. But 2, look good in front of others. Okay, then put a 3 in front of is. Is he not a victim of the delusion that he can wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this world if he only manages well? Okay. So 3, we can put manipulate situations, right? Manipulate situations, right? And then I just something like things okay. Manipulate situation / things okay, right? We have that power. That's what we're thinking, but we don't. Put a 4 in front of is. Is it not evident to all the rest of the players that these are the things he wants? Right? So write a 4, and they had me write, if I was king, everything okay? Right? I just can't get people to do what I say, damn it. If I was king, everything okay. 5, put a 5 in front of and do not his actions make each of them wish to retaliate, snatching all they can get out of the show? Okay, I just put for 5, I just wrote a translation, piss him off. That's what happens, piss him off. Angry, right? And then put a 6 in front of is. That's the 6th question of self-delusion. Is he not, even in his best moments, a producer of confusion rather than harmony? So for 6, I just put a simple 1, stir the pot. Stir the pot. Right? And that was one of my favorite things to do. I'm out there running around, I'm lying, I'm cheating, I'm conning, I'm manipulating, right? If I can create enough confusion and enough anger and chaos, people aren't going to notice me, right? All they're going to see is a whirling tornado, and they're not going to see that John is really the guy that's making things not so good here, right? So, let's highlight this next little line. Just, our actor is self-centered, egocentric, right? And somewhere in there, we can write the whiner. The whiner. W-H-I-N-E-R. The whiner. Right? Our actor is self-centered, egocentric, as people like to call it nowadays. He is like the retired businessman who lolls in the Florida sunshine in the winter, complaining of the sad state of the nation, the minister who sighs over the sins of the 20th century, politicians and reformers who are sure all would be utopia. Let's see, okay. If the rest of the world would only behave. The outlaw safecracker who thinks society has wronged him, and the alcoholic who has lost all and is locked up. Whatever our protestations, highlight the next two lines, are not most of us concerned with ourselves, our resentments, or our self-pity. So next to that little phrase we can write, I just wrote me, 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 me. Me, 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 right? So we're going to write a couple things at the top of the page. One of them we can write, go to any length to believe the lies we tell ourselves. Right? And I mean, you know what? If don't worry if that doesn't apply to me or whatever. I just kind of wrote the stuff down, and when I go through this book over and over again, these little things become more and more evident to me. But they sure weren't at the start. I'll tell you that. Go to any length to believe the lies we tell ourselves. And then we're also going to write a definition: self-seeking. I just wrote the word self-seeking, and then in parentheses, looking good in front of others. Right? Self-seeking, looking good in front of others. I would expend an awful lot of energy running around trying to get you guys think I'm somebody who I'm not. All right? Self-seeking, looking good in front of others. Go to any length to believe the lies we tell ourselves. Okay? So, this is 1, 2, 3. Let's highlight the next 4 lines. Selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles, driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity. We step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. Okay? Off to the left, we can write self-delusion equals thinking I know. Right? And again, I didn't, this fear, self-delusion, equals thinking I know. If I'm really afraid that I'm not going to have enough money for booze or drugs, back in the day, or enough money for my rent, I am going to do all kinds of crazy things, man, to get rid of that fear. And I discovered that I had a lot of irrational fears that weren't true, that made me do a lot of things and violate a lot of my morals. And when people would retaliate at me, I would look at only what they did to me, and I would say, I am the victim here, that son of a bitch. I'm going to get even with him if it kills me. Right? And I never would look at the things that I did to get things going. Right? So that's we're gonna look at a lot of things when we do our 4th step, and we're gonna come to hopefully a lot of realizations when we share it with someone else and God in our 5th step. But again, we're the victim. So right after retaliate, write the word victim somewhere in there. Right? If it's all their fault.
Self-delusion
equals thinking I know, right? Well, it's just one definition, but I always, again, when I'm out there and I knew the answer to everything, and I had a closed mind, and you guys couldn't tell me or teach me a damn thing, right? And that's what kept me drunk for years and decades, actually. Sometimes they hurt us seemingly without provocation, but we invariably find highlight to the end of the paragraph, that at some time in the past we have made decisions based on self, underline self, which later placed us in a position to be hurt. Okay? So again, what he's saying there is we made some decisions based on the social instinct, right? On the security instinct, or on the sex instinct, and we did things that were, we overdid things. And people retaliated against us, but we only saw what they did to us, not what we did because of ourself, which is, again, these three instincts, right? So to the left, next to that, what we just read, right? Leading into fourth step, and then in parentheses, right? Not a victim anymore. Leading into fourth step, not a victim anymore. Okay, so God, he's gonna hit us over the head with a bunch of stuff here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're gonna highlight the next 6 lines, and we're gonna circle a couple of musts in there. So our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making, right? Double underline, just underline our own making too, because that's doubly important. They arise out of ourselves, and the alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will run riot. Underline that, self-will run riot, in addition to highlighting. Though he usually doesn't think so. We really don't think that's the case. I'm a pretty good guy. Above everything, we alcoholics must, circle must, be rid of the selfishness. Okay, underline, be rid of the selfishness. We must, circle must, or it kills us. And double underline, or it kills us. Right? And then God makes that possible. We can stop highlighting there. And we can write under God makes that possible. We can write honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. Those are essential. Honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. You know, and I'm thinking to myself at about this point, well, how am I all of a sudden going to be able to be honest, open-minded, and willing? I mean, that's ridiculous. I can't, how is this going to happen? And they explained it to me, well, what we're going to do is we just want you to continue through with these steps and see what happens, right? And if you try to be as honest as you can with yourself, and if you try just to be as open-minded as you're capable of being and as willing as you're capable of being, things are going to happen, right? And we're going to ask for God's help, of course. And there often seems no way of entirely getting rid of self without His aid. Circle His. That's capitalized. So without God's help. So off to the left, we're going to write a couple things again. And there are more definitions, but write selfish equals money. In most cases, there's a lot of good definitions, but when we're doing the 4-step, mainly selfish equals money. And then self-centered equals it's about me. So selfish, money, property, things. Self-centered equals it's about me. Right? And underneath that, we're going to keep writing, right? Fear that people won't do what I want them to. Fear that people won't do what I want them to. Certainly, this is going to be true in personal relationships with your significant other. It's going to be true in your relationships with people at work, your boss. It's going to be true everywhere. Fear that people won't do what I want them to. And then we're going to write, I know we're going to get down near the bottom here, another little definition of selfishness. We're going to write selfishness equals me not getting what I want out of life, relationships, work, family, ... Selfishness, me not getting what I want out of life, relationships, work, family, ... Selfishness, me not getting what I want out of life, relationships, work, family, ... So I know we got everything written down the side of the page there. So we're going to, well, let's see here. Where am I? Many of us had moral and philosophical convictions galore, but we could not live up to them. Above, we could not live up to them, right? Broken promises. Broken promises. Even though we would have liked to, right? Honey, I'm going to be different. Boss, I'm going to be on time from now on, right? But we could not live up to them even though we would have liked to. Neither could we reduce our self-centeredness, underline self-centeredness, much by wishing or trying on our own power, underline our own power. And then highlight that last sentence, we had to have God's help. Circle the word had because that's a must again. We had to have God's help. Right? Remember, a chapter or so ago, it said that we are going to find a higher power that will relieve our alcoholism or our problem. It doesn't say we're going to find a power that will enable us. This power is going to relieve our problems. We had to have God's help. So, I guess right next to that, you can write step 3. We had to have God's help off to the right. Maybe write step 3 right in there. This is the how and the why of it. First of all, underline 6 words. We had to quit playing God. Right? Had to quit playing God. Circle the word God. And I remember how indignant I was when I read this. I don't do that. It didn't work. Next, we decided that hereafter in this drama of life, highlight the next 3 lines. God was going to be our director, and circle every word for God. So circle God. God was going to be our director, circle director. He is the principal, circle he and circle principal. And we are his agents, circle the word his. He, circle he, is the father, circle he and father. And we are his children, circle his. Most good ideas are simple. And this concept was the keystone of the new and triumphant arch through which we pass to freedom. So that last little line there, you can write 3rd step promise. Remember, we are building an arch. That's the picture he's painting in our mind, right? Willingness, the first stone. Belief, the 2nd stone. And this idea that God is going to be our director, right? That is the keystone. The keystone is that top stone that holds that whole damn arch in place. That's the one, right? So that's a 3rd step promise. And we're going to write something else at the bottom of the page. We do selfless acts to get rid of selfishness. Right? We do selfless acts to get rid of our selfishness. I guess I didn't see that. Or to get rid of selfishness. We do selfless acts to get rid of selfishness. Okay. We're going to make it. We only got a page and a half left. We're going to stop before the end of the chapter. Yeah, there's a lot. There's too much. We'd never get through. We'd be here till midnight. Okay. When we sincerely took such a position, all sorts of remarkable things followed. Okay. Highlight these 5 words. We had a new employer. Now we're going to see employer is capitalized. So after the word employer, write God. Right? Being all powerful, he provided, just highlight those 2 words, he provided, right? And then what we needed, underline needed, and then circle if, and then highlight we kept close to him and performed his work well. So next to that line that we just highlighted, we're going to write God's will for us. God's will for us. right? And I mean, well, how do we know what that is? Well, we don't always, but you know what? We're going to learn. We're going to seek God. We're going to seek through prayer and meditation, and we're also going to start to run things by our sponsor and maybe take suggestions from other people rather than thinking we know everything and we're doing it our way or the highway, right? So we're just going to try things a little bit differently, and we're going to get these ideas from other people, and some, of course, from our prayer and our meditation that we do. Established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves. Underline our little plans and designs, right? John's little world, our little plans and designs. More and more, we became interested in seeing, circle, what we could contribute to life. Just those four or five words. What we could contribute to life, So, maybe draw a line up to the top and write, instead of taking. Instead of taking. Right? How can we contribute to the stream of life rather than just being a taker, taken from your parents, taken from everybody, right? Your friends, your significant other. As we felt new power flow in, as we enjoyed peace of mind, as we discovered we could face life successfully, as we became conscious of His presence, we began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, or the hereafter. We were reborn. So next to those lines, we're going to write third step promise, right? And we're talking about a new power flowing in. We're talking about getting some peace of mind, thank God, because I'm always stressed out about everything, right? We're going to discover that we can face life successfully, right? As we became conscious of His presence and we begin to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, these are amazing promises. These are all third step promises. They're fantastic ones. So we're going to write a little bit off to the right. Let's write... let's write service work, right? Service work. And then underneath that we can write, we feel awkward. We feel awkward. I know I did. But talk to people, reach out, put fear aside. So I'm talking about like when you see a new person come into a meeting, or somebody that you look and my goodness, this person can use a smile, a kind word, and that's anybody, anywhere, right? Not just at meetings. So service work, we feel awkward, but talk to people, reach out, put fear aside, or put your fear aside, right? And then keep writing, what can I bring to the meeting? And life, right? What can I bring to the meeting and life? I would never think about what I could bring to situations. I would think about what I could get. So we're going to try things a little differently here. So that we were reborn. So, one of the reasons I love doing these Code Blue things is because every time I go through these steps, I rework them right along with you guys, and I get to become reborn in my mind. And I get even more of these promises, the more that I do this, and the more I understand myself, and the more I try to help others, the better my life gets. So we're going to skip the next paragraph because we are going to end today taking the third step, hopefully formally. So we're going to come back to that in a minute. So let's go down, where it says, we found it very desirable. Let's go up 3 lines, So right after me, I do thy will always. All right, is everybody there?
Yep.
Okay, put a 1 in front of we. Because we're going to write third step directions, and there's 4 of them. So put a 1 in front of we. And then the next 2 paragraphs down, you can just write third step directions. So the first one is... This is when we take the third step. It's funny because what they do is they trap us. They have us take the step first and then they tell us the instructions, right? So we thought well before taking this step, making sure we were ready. That's 1. Put a 2 in front of that we could at last abandon ourselves utterly to Him. Then put a 3 in front of we. We found it very desirable to take the spiritual step with an understanding person, such as our wife, best friend, or spiritual advisor. But it is better to meet God alone than with one who might misunderstand. Okay, so, you know what though? And you don't need to write this down. But when this book first came out, you know, we didn't have meetings all over the place. We didn't have people that are sober, that have worked these steps, that can guide us through them, right? So today, I know that I think it's best if like when I'm sponsoring somebody, if they take the third step with me together on our knees, right? Holding hands. I mean, that's what I think is good, because then I know that the person has done it. I get to do it again. And I think that prayer always has more power when you do it with other people, right? So this is kind of like if you got this book and you're in California, you just open the book, you get to this point, and it's like, my goodness, I don't have any other recovered person to help me. You know, then, hey, wife, come on over here, or minister, or whoever, right? But today we got plenty of good people in AA that can help us. With one who might understand. The wording was, of course, quite optional, so long as we express the idea. So they're saying that as long as you express every idea in that third step, you can make up your own prayer. But boy, I sure like this one. Put a 4 in front of voicing. Voicing it without reservation. Right? So those are 4 third step directions. Now, let's also make a note, if you can, off to the left. Very important. Don't inflict our opinion of God on others. Right? Don't inflict our opinion of God on others. I don't care if you're using right now the group as the higher power. I don't care if you're using Indian, you know, the nature. We do not inflict our opinion of God on others. That's what religion does. Religion says you must believe this way or you are not going to make it into heaven. We are not going to do that. We don't care how you believe. All we're going to ask people is, are you willing to believe, right? This was only a beginning, though if honestly and humbly made, an effect, sometimes a very great one, was felt at once. So let's write a few things here. Well, let's highlight the next 2 lines. Next, we launched out on a course of vigorous action. Circle vigorous action and write 4 through 12. Okay? And again, highlight the bottom line too. The first step of which is a personal house cleaning. After house cleaning, write step 4. Step 4. And then we're going to write something at the bottom of the page, which I didn't understand this either for quite a while. Let's write, spirituality is following a set of rules. Right? Spirituality is following a set of rules. You know, I'll never forget... some of you are old enough, a lot of you, I guess. You remember Magnum P.I. when he was, that's a series from, I think, the early 80s, and he was dealing with a samurai who came to Hawaii, and the guy said, Magnum, if you do not live by your code, life has no meaning, right? So it's kind of the same as that, right? Spirituality is following a set of rules. Okay, so the first step of which is a personal house cleaning is step 4. Okay, which many of us had never attempted. Never attempted it. Though our decision was a vital and crucial step, next to that write 3rd. That's the 3rd step. Okay, our decision was a vital and crucial step. Highlight to the end of the paragraph. It could have little permanent effect unless at once, and circle at once to boot, followed by a strenuous effort to face and to be rid of the things in ourselves which had been blocking us. Our liquor was but a symptom, so we had to get down to causes and conditions. Highlight down to conditions, right? After conditions, we're going to write stop week 7, because we're going to stop here, but we got to write it. We got to write a few things. So what we just highlighted there, we're going to go back up to be rid of the things in ourselves. Above ourselves, write 4 and 5, right? Which had been blocking us, and then above blocking us, right, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So essentially, it's 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 and 9. Those are the things that are blocking us. And off to the left, let's write anger and fear block us from God. Anger and fear block us from God. Okay. And again, underline our liquor was but a symptom. I came into here and I, even though it's highlighted, and underline that too, because, you guys, if I can just stop drinking, everything will be just fine, right? So here I am at 6 months sober, going to a meeting every night. I'm stark raving insane. I'm having ideas about killing myself every day. I'm full of fear. I'm full of anger. And things are just horrible. Things got worse. Right? So I now you go through that, and then you discover that, your liquor is but a symptom. There's something, because I pulled away to the liquor and I was still in horrible condition, right? So real quick, I'm just going to tell you a little story. I sobered up about 6 months after I sobered up. I had been missing one of my teeth. Right, ones that you chew with, right? I'd been missing it for about 5 years, right? Somehow I never had any money to get that tooth fixed, right? I could go out and I could hand a dealer $2,000, but I could never get that tooth fixed. I made a decision to fix that tooth. This was maybe 6 months. No, this was a year after I sobered up. 2 years after I sobered up, I made a decision to fix that tooth. 3 years after I sobered up, I made a decision. I'm getting that damn tooth fixed, right? 4 years after I sobered up, I said, there's no excuse. I'm getting that tooth fixed. Things were a little different, though. I called up the dentist, and I found out what's the difference between a crown and a bridge. I got the pricing. I made an appointment, went in, I had him looked at it and had him give me a bid. Then I gave him I paid for the whole damn thing, and I made the appointment to get that bridge put in. So my decision had zero effect until I took action, right? And so basically our decision in step 3 is Columbus, when he made that decision, he's still standing on the shore. So are we. We're not going to get anything until we take the action. And it says, at once. That doesn't mean next week. People say, you know what, you got to be sober for a year before you do your 4th step. Well, by God, that might kill somebody. They might die. No. We're going to do that right away. It says at once. And you know what? 4 always follows right after 3. So just a couple of things. Guys, we're going to read the 4th step in the 12 and 12. It's just going to help us. So let's get these. Hopefully you guys started working on this. Again, all I want you to do is everybody you're pissed off at, just write them down, get this down, and then no more than, because when I first did this, it's like, well, who are you pissed off at? Well, I ain't pissed off at anybody. Well, really, John? Well, how about your boss? Oh, that son of a bitch I got. Okay, how about that cop that gave? Well, that son of a bitch. How about the IRS? I want to kill him. Okay, I'm pissed off. So we're going to write everybody that, and you can write, some people do it differently, but my sponsor said, write your significant other 6 times if you have to, but just in a few words, just put a few words, don't write a paragraph. Only write, maybe 8 words, I'm pissed off at the IRS because they steal my money, right? I mean, whatever it is, something simple. So just do column 1, do it all the way down first, then come back and do the cause. So they're saying that you should be able to fit it in here. Right? We're not going to worry about any of this. Next week, we're going to learn how to do this, and I'm going to hand out definitions and things, and we're going to learn how to go across and do these. Because, guys, I'm going to tell you, we're going to do this for our anger, we're going to do it for our fear, and we're going to do it for the hurts and the harms. Today, whenever I find myself angry as hell, I can grab one of these sheets, I can say, who am I mad at? Why am I mad? How is it affecting all of these things? And I look at the definitions. Then I go to the back and I say, what's my part in it? And then they give us instructions on what to do. And then we can get rid of that crap. There's 2 things. When I get angry, let's say my boss yells at me in front of a customer. I can either be pissed off all day and not sell a damn thing to anybody else and treat everybody else like shit. Or I can get away for a few minutes, I can now do this in my head. I can run this whole thing in my head, and then we're going to get to this in step 10 when we get there. Then I can hit my knees, and I can get rid of that shit so it doesn't stay with me all day. And as soon as it's gone, I can go back about my business and it doesn't bother me. I was a guy who would hold on to everything. If not for days, weeks, or months, even years, I would hold on to that anger. So we're gonna be able to get rid of it. We're gonna start with resentments because it's the number one offender. So who am I angry at, and what's the cause? You have this sheet which shows you kind of how to do it. Make a bunch of copies. For a guy, I didn't think I was angry at anybody. I had about 150 that I came up with. So so I think, let's go back, guys. Let's everybody get on our knees. And you know what? We're taking step 3 for real right now. And it's as simple, if you want, as a decision to go through the process and see what happens. We were now at step 3. Many of us said to our Maker as we understood Him, God, I offer myself to Thee, to build with me and to do with me as Thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do Thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of Thy power, Thy love, and Thy way of life. May I do Thy will always. Peace. All right, thanks everybody.